Dear guests, dear colleagues, wow, a great crowd on a Friday evening here in our Novartis campus. My name is Nelly Rickenbach. I'm part of the communications team at Novartis, and it is a true pleasure to welcome you to tonight's edition of our talk, Novartis Campus Lecture. We're hosting those talks now for over a decade. We're granted by great minds looks under the hood of their thinking and working. I though have to say, I don't think in those 10 years have we had a speaker that was such a great fit to our company name. Novartis is an artificial name composed of the two Latin words nove and artes, the new arts. Refik Anadol, he is truly pioneering the aesthetics of machine intelligence. He's spearheading the space of new arts. Art, though, does not only play an important role and takes up a space in our company name, it is also everywhere in our campuses and our workplaces around the world, sprinkled like mini invitations to foster serendipitous thinking, to look at things from a different perspective. So art has a great meaning for our company. This is not only true for Novartis, it's also very much true, and we've spent some time at our wonderful archives today for the predecessor companies that formed Novartis. Speaking of traditions, it is also a tradition that you're welcomed by a Novartis representative who will give a little address, and it is a deep honor that Vas Narasimhan will be the host of honor. Thank you, Vas.
So a big warm welcome to all of you tonight. Thank you all for joining us here on campus for what I believe will be a truly special and remarkable evening. In many ways, we're here to celebrate the positive power of artificial intelligence. We know that there are many things to worry about with this technology, but there's also, I believe, many things to celebrate. And I'd like to share with you two stories, I think, that nicely illustrate the power of this technology. Over a decade ago, Demis Hassabis and his colleagues started Google DeepMind. Their original goal was to use AI at first to win various games. They won chess matches. They won against some of the more difficult video games. Demis is somebody we know well. And then he took on the challenge of trying to defeat AlphaGo. In 2016 in March, the Google DeepMind team was successful in defeating the world champion in Go, the most difficult board game in the world, really demonstrating the power of AI to imagine solutions to a gaming problem. But here's what's interesting, is on the flight home from Seoul, South Korea, Demis decided to take on a huge problem, figuring out how proteins fold. And over the next 5 years, he and his team would work tirelessly with vast data sets to solve one of the most vexing problems in science, which is how do you predict a string of amino acids? How will those amino acids fold together? In 2021, in a conference in Monterrey, Mexico, they announced the launch of AlphaFold, one of the most astonishing advances probably in the last 50 years in science. They then made an incredible move. They made AlphaFold free to the public. It is now one of the most used tools in the world. And they have since advanced it with AlphaFold 2 and AlphaFold 3. And you may have seen a few weeks ago, Demis Hassabis and his colleague were awarded the Nobel Prize. We're very proud as Novartis to be one of 2 companies in the world that work with Demis and Isomorphic Labs to design and discover new medicines. A remarkable story about the power of AI. But something else happened in 2016 as well. Refik Anadol, who had graduated from UCLA a few years earlier, launched Refik Anadol Studios with the idea to marry interdisciplinary experts to use data to allow us to see via art the unseen world. Through his work over those years, he has built truly one of the most unique art platforms in the world. His work has been profiled and shown in places like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Biennale in Venice, numerous other art installations around the globe, projected on some of the most important buildings in the art world, and consistently wowing and astonishing all who have the opportunity to experience it. I've had the good fortune, and my family have had the good fortune to meet Refik, to be inspired by his work. For those of you who went to Art Basel, you likely saw the incredible work he did to actually show us what happens inside the human body and the human mind when somebody experiences a completely new place through travel. It's those experiences that allow him, I think, to touch all of our hearts and souls through his work. So without further ado, I hope all of you will enjoy what I'm sure will be a remarkable talk by one of the most gifted artists in the world, my friend Refik Anadol.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Was. Thank you, Nelly. Thank you, everyone. I have a very honest start because I'm very excited to respect the building, to respect you. I think I am around 123 BPM, to be very honest and open. And sorry, 159 BPM. No lie, transparent data. So I'm so happy to be here with you tonight. And I'm deeply honored to be in this building, in this campus, with the pioneers and scientists and people trying to discover, make positive impact for humanity. And I'll do my best to share our journey. I'm here also with my wife and partner, Efsun. Together we are in this journey with our wonderful team. And I would like to share you what's going on in a mind of an artist working with data, AI, and technology. Originally from Istanbul, where I believe where the West and East connects, the city has a huge impact in the journey because I believe from the Silk Road to like the Europe, the connection of centuries-old information is going through. And I think if you think about Bosphorus, that two continents connects, I always felt that the physical and the virtual world can connect. And I got my very first computer 8 years old. So my mom completely randomly, one day, and like a birthday gift, I just learned that a machine one day can become a friend through playing lots of games. But I think what made me more inspired, not only the computer, but the movie Blade Runner. So if you remember this movie, the science fiction, where the first time media architecture like the pavilion also has in the campus, I was so inspired 8 years old that one day the cars can fly. But I remember that a humanoid saying the other humanoid that this is not your memories, this is someone else's memories. And I cannot forget how inspiring that idea of the memory itself. But as a child, as we all know, the life is a very challenging concept and we have different challenges in life. And we sometimes forget who we are, how like joy as a child we are. And even though it's one of the most dystopic movies in the world, I try to keep that child imagination and trying to find inspiration, joy, and hope. So today I would like to show you how this moment in life and time, and how even the darkest moments maybe in life can bring still same ideas. And that's one of the reasons I'm so inspired by many things about the future, or we can call it remembering the future. Very early days, I start thinking about light as a material, and really inspired by architecture so much. Try to find how we can think about the 2D surface of a building, that what happened if it's literally alive. And it was so early, of course, that is 2008. I was like really inspired by these like projection mappings and so forth. But there was a very inspiring quote I remember in the library. And Kierkegaard was saying, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. I feel like this is literally what data means. If you think about data, it's literally what we are leaving behind. So 2008, I coined the term data painting. So the idea was literally what happens, which, by the way, to me, data is not just number. I feel like data can be a form of memory. But this memory can take any shape, any color, any form. And most importantly, maybe as an artist, if you think about if data becomes a pigment, maybe it doesn't need to be worried about the Newtonian physics. Maybe it doesn't need to dry. Maybe it can take any shape and form. So that was the early days of imagination with information. And very early experiments with data, you can see. But what made me much inspired was the idea of a reality. Like what happens if you think data beyond like 2 dimensions and how we can try these experiments. And of course, across the history, many artists experiment with this idea. And on top of that, I'm really inspired by the frame. You will see a lot. By the way, 2011, the idea was put this frame around the building. And it was pretty much a rejection. It was too expensive. And then it turned into pretty much a fun experiment. And then if you think about technology in life, right, we are all becoming living beings connected to each other. I mean, looks like we are spending almost 7 hours approximately in the virtual world. I feel like we are all in this physical and virtual world. And I feel like we are filling these new spaces that sometimes I'm sure you don't even remember where you are exactly in that experience. And I feel like we are constantly changing as humanity, and we are constantly asking the question, who is controlling what? And sometimes, I'm sure, so as a gamer, I feel myself a lot in this mindset. So from here, I feel like, I think art is really all about control and chance, systems and hardwares, and I really found that we are all like this most of the time, right? It's to be very honest and open. So I found that, okay, how can I understand this medium? How can I understand this space? So I moved to Los Angeles, to UCLA, where I got my second MFA degree. And if you think about an artist that is like trying to make art in the public art, it's not like a studio with a beautiful pigment brush or a canvas. It's like this. I'm in the street with cables, like from leftover machines, and trying to do hacky things. And because I found that the most inspiring art form is, to me, is the public art. Art is open to anyone, any age, any culture. And it's a really interesting space to think about when there's no door and wall and ceiling. It's for anyone and everyone. So it was a really challenging start because I chose the Disney Hall, which is Frank Gehry, this building's wonderful architect, which is a Los Angeles, also the kind of a Eiffel Tower of Los Angeles. So I was so fortunate as a student, which I was dreaming that one day, I hope this building can dream and hallucinate and remember. And I was on, by the way, stage, literally, in Microsoft as a student with my shorts, so I'm not like that anymore. More aligned with the reality, and then I was able to receive this special award as an academic award space, and Frank Gehry remembered this award moment and then shared his drawings, and I was able to graduate. And actually, another Frank Gehry building, 2014, where my wife and together with the team, we start our studio, and this is the Disney Hall, very similar like Douglas Fir, the same actually material we are in this building, and I was able to finally met with my hero, Frank Gehry, which is again this building, truly an honor to start the journey with him to understand the future of architecture. So now I'm not alone. This is our team. Now we are 20 people, can speak 15 languages and 10 countries. And the idea behind becoming a team is a multi-dimensional and multi-international and cultural, is really to make art for anyone and everyone. So last 10 years now almost, what we try to create is art for really anyone and everyone. But what you will see in this very short clip, we were not thinking about just a museum and gallery, but we thought about what happens if we go beyond that. Context of art can only be here, or only be in that conditions. And what I'm super inspired that, what happens if you think about even a school to give inspiration, a hospital to give hope, or maybe even an airport that nobody maybe think about missing a flight to watch an artwork. But it's really about finding this idea of embedding media arts into architecture, imagining a future where we can think about beyond concrete, glass, and steel. So what happens if light, which I think one of the most inspiring material in the world, that can be a wavelength and a particle, it can take any shape and form, it can disappear if you don't want it. It's just liberating this context of pigmentation. So I'm very grateful last 10 years as a studio. We work with incredible people and transform incredible buildings and places, and truly try to create art, science, and technology, which I believe the campus also have an incredible context, create AI, neuroscience, and architecture together. But at the end of the day, try to imagine the connection between humans, machines, and environments. So last 10 years, we always ask these questions: how we can bring people together in a world where we may be alone, how we can imagine and feel and really, truly, honestly connect each other, and understand what is coming next for humanity. I do believe that artists are kind of the alarm mechanism for humanity. We can ask questions about technology, we can ask questions about humanity, and truly find that connections that we may miss maybe every day. So I'm so grateful that today I want to share you some of our important projects that I thought that we contribute to the art world. I thought that they made a positive impact and we ask some challenging questions. And not a lazy mindset, try to like really be uncomfortable and really push the boundaries of imagination in the age of machine intelligence. So I want to start with this really inspiring quote from Blaise. He says, like the invention of applied pigments, printing press, photography, and computers, we believe machine intelligence is an innovation that will profoundly affect art. And it's absolutely an honor that 2016, that thanks to what I also mentioned, 2016, February, almost more than 8 years now, I was the first artist in residence at Google's AMI program. So this image on the left side was the very early AI dreaming or hallucinating these, I guess, creatures that are trained on, which is a backpropagation, a technique that allows scientists to like look back what AI could dream. And on the right side, Mike Taika, who was my liaison and mentor, teach me and my team how to use machine learning algorithms. And that's what I start machine hallucinations. If a machine can learn, can it dream? I felt that not only me, many artists ask the same question, what is beyond reality? And I do believe that in the age of AI and data, that question is getting much more and much more inspiring. But to me, not only just technological like imagination, but truly deep diving in the idea of information, to knowledge, to wisdom, kind of understanding consciousness. And I'm so honored that in that residency, I am super inspired by the Library of Babel, one of the most inspiring stories, that I thought that what will happen if we can think about data and library as a space to start the narratives. By the way, very inspiring moment. On the left side, 9 years of archivist people sitting together, sorting the image archive of 1.7 million images. On the right side, only 90 seconds for AI to sort the same challenge. And 8 years ago, that was a huge thing. And now it's much easier. But anyway, I was really inspired by this idea. But how can we imagine a library, which was this form that you go enter this? When you enter this archive, AI is literally in front of you, showing all the possibilities. But this time, not just a physical object, a book. By the way, I love libraries, I love books, I love physical world. But it was very inspiring to imagine what happens if you go to a library and see things I'd never seen before. Connections between documents, information. And of course, not only physical world, but also in the virtual world. And we also experiment what happens if we can literally see everything in one shot of that library's information. And lastly, if we leave this library alone, what will happen if it can dream and hallucinate? So that's where it started, this idea of machine hallucination, 2016. On the left side, very early AI model, way before diffusion models. It is trained on 1.7 million documents. It was a historic moment for art space, because like being able to machine that is like can hallucinate those images. But on the right side, what you see is what I believe were the artistic imagination. What happens if we take these machines' possible dreams and turn them into a new pigmentation? So last 8 years as a team, we trained more than 400 AI models and worked with more than 5 billion images. And that was a fascinating journey. And we only focused one thing while looking at the data sets: collective memories of humanity. Nature, urban, culture, space, things I hope belongs to everyone. This can be the cities, this can be the beautiful creatures in the nature, and so forth. So it was a fascinating teamwork, and it really took us a lot of time to understand how these machine learning algorithms can generate a thinking brush. So when I say thinking brush, things get, I think, much inspiring, because then now we can think about a brush that we can dip into the mind of a machine and paint with machine consciousness. So, but Carl Sagan said, imagination will often carry us to the worlds that never were, but without it, we go nowhere. But what could we do with this thinking brush? So I'm really inspired by archives, and I'm calling when machine learning algorithms look at the big data, I see the results as a data universe. So these are, for example, some of the examples that I feel like they are not just two-dimensional things, they are actually three-dimensional sculptures. For example, if you look at these images, Rumi's Mesnevi in 19 languages, read by 3 different AI algorithms. They are sorted by X, Y, Z and RGB coordinates, and the connections are done by the similarities. So I see them not just like images, but a form of actually 6-dimensional kind of sculptures, which we can 3D print, touch, and do other things. Or if you look at the Mozart's entire life, his entire repertoire is similarly like look in 1784 to 1791, and again, listened by a machine learning algorithm, I think also similar thing. But being here in Novartis campus, I imagine one concept so long now that I want to also highlight in the very important day of, and I felt that this is a great time to talk about art as medicine. I feel like this concept has been, of course, discovered, and I already believe that art is a form of medicine and that keeps our souls and minds connected and so forth. But I want to show you some examples that really inspired the science itself. 8 years ago, the year I started my research on AI and data, unfortunately, the same year I learned that my uncle diagnosed by Alzheimer's. It was a truly very interesting feeling because as an artist working with data, a form of memory, like learning the best research in the world, it really hit me really different. And I asked this question, can I just make it art for the moment of remembering? And I'm so happy to say that our research as a studio started working with neuroscientists around the world. One of them, Adam Ghezali. Here you can see me on this machine, 32-channel EEG, in real time, and this is software we wrote. Literally, real time can look at the type of memory and define a good or negative one, and real time take it and transform into melting memories. And this was a fascinating 8 years ago research that what will happen if we can truly think about memory as a form of art and also quantify it through the science and think there's a new ways of imagination, pigmentation, sculptures. And 2 years ago, also invited Venice Biennale Architecture. This time, I asked the question, can we use our emotions as a form of architecture? Can we live in our like a happy moment in life? So what you see behind me is a human connectome project which we were able to use 6,000 people's brain scannings, an open source data archive at UCLA, and we were able to work with incredible scientists and look at how we can visualize our emotions as a space. And after these data sets, it gets really interesting that literally what you are seeing here is not a real, almost real looking tractography results, a DTI results looking machine creating these forms. And it was fascinating to think that we can really travel in this alternative space, or latent space, that is also called in the AI space, and really think that how we can go beyond, again, the physical constraints of life. And I do believe when art, science, and technology, when AI, neuroscience, and architecture comes together, we can truly imagine new ways of materials and new ways of stories. And doing it with the open source data, which is an ethical and information, it was a fascinating experiment. And architects, I learned that so much in love with this new form of like pushing forward and materials. It was fascinating to experiment and really think that where we can go in the age of AI with the future of architecture. And I do believe that buildings will definitely remember and definitely dream what's happening inside. But one also project I want to highlight in this neuroscience experiments, by the way, you can see those are pretty hard to make buildings right now. But one day, I know that maybe we can 3D print, maybe find a way to like turn them into these living beings, living architectures. It was a fascinating experiment, and Venice Biennale Architecture is where artists like myself try to imagine the possibilities. And I want to show you one more project that is also very important. 2 years ago, I was very fortunate to work with probably one of the most inspiring data from the Lausanne Hospital. 5 children's brain signals that are healed from their disease. This is a visualization of 5 different sculptures in this 10 meter by 10 meter media wall that was transforming their beautiful positive story into a form of sculpture. And it was auctioned at UNICEF and sold for 1.7 million euro. And this whole money went to the UNICEF to help for the children who needs the support and the families. So there's a high chance that when the artwork is done in these collaborations, it can create value, it can create impact, it can be a tangible transformation beyond shiny pixels, and it can truly touch and change certain problems. So as a studio, we are doing our very best to find collaborators and try to tell these positive stories that go beyond the canvas, beyond the box, and be meaningful and purposeful in our journey. The other fun project that I want to talk about, this idea of embedding AI into architecture. I think it's fascinating to like start imagining. I was 8 years old again, looking at the walls and the doors of the home. And by the way, my mom even said that she brought me to like a psychiatrist. Like, why is he always looking at these really walls and like ceilings? This was the same year she bought the computer, and I started playing games. And I was so fascinated and asking like, why this wall is like this? Like, why it doesn't move and why it doesn't shape itself like the games? So we did many projects like this last 10 years, the idea of embedding media into architecture. This is the city of New York, for example. We let AI to literally create a new New York by 113 million images. This is all not real, but looks almost real, machine hallucinations. But the idea was go beyond just a picture, and we create this three-dimensional space where you can step inside and literally imagine being in the mind of a machine, if it makes sense, and just surrounded by the possibilities of pigmentation that never dries, but change all the time. So I'm really inspired by this idea so much, last now I would say 16 years, that architecture can turn into these living surfaces. And connecting with information and the city itself, the weather, heartbeat, brain signals, you are just seeing the possibilities are getting so inspiring and almost feels never the same, because each building, each archive, each story is a new story. So this idea of embedding architecture and AI together really starts like this. So if you think about what is a canvas here, so I'm literally nerding with the team, connecting more than 20 projectors together and attach them each algorithmically. And for example, this is a movie theater former, and these are connection tissues between 100 movies that AI watch, but then project back to the space to give it a kind of a new context. Or, Efsun here, enjoying the living surface. So we can also transform those environments by giving them a kind of a computer vision where the movement and the speed, the velocity, the vector, basically the physics of the movement can be applied to these living pigmentations. So it's really exciting to think what else we can do in this media architecture concept. So, and then I think one of these inspiring moments happened also very recently here in Basel, in Art Basel, one of the most important, I think, place for artists to be. And I was so honored to visualize 4 people never travel in their life and ask them their dream destinations and bring them to their dream destination and transform their mind signals into a kind of a living sculpture, a data sculpture. It was fascinating to see the response in a positive way. But by the way, we were literally able to fly with a neuroscientist team, look at their base data, which their homes, where they feel their home is. And then we also travel with them and also record their data when they went to their dream location. And that gave us literally 2 types of data sets to understand the big differences. And it was a fascinating experiment of art and science. And then it was literally, I guess, one of the first experiments. By the way, a documentary coming soon, 30 minutes long. We will be sharing their feelings, the moment first time you open your eyes. And we have fascinating people, such as literally Sigurd Björn, for example, a legendary truck driver from Iceland, never traveled in his life. I mean, we have a Tui Kuru from Yavanava, a shaman that the very first time went and see another spiritual leader. And from Kenya, we have Esther, that she's an incredibly, truly nerd of a tea plantation. And she very first time saw other teas around the world, and she researched for. But what was inspiring? This moment when we entered the room, we were suddenly in the mind of one of those wonderful persons. The music you hear is also coming from the same data. Their goosebumps, their heartbeat, their brain signals were a kind of a data sonification. And I was truly inspired that being in the mind of someone, a kind of a form of empathy, I think, a form of understanding each other, but not necessarily conversations that we are sometimes losing. But it's a moment to understand and remember how incredible to be in a physical world. Even though it's a digital art, but it was all about quantifying the idea of a travel, find new places, discoveries, innovations. So it was very touching to me to see the people across the world getting in Art Basel, sitting in the room, thinking different, sharing beautiful notes. It was very fascinating. And I think that's where I think art happens. It touches the mind and the soul at the same time. So I'm so happy to say that connecting art, science, and technology and reimagining information is just an infinite story. And I think there's so much we can imagine. And when I think about data, there is no way to forget nature. So I am in love with nature, like many of us, hopefully. It's our most important thing we have, the most inspiring thing we have. probably the most important thing we have to protect for our future. So what we are seeing is an AI dreaming 75 million flowers, pretty much all the flower types in the world, from the Smithsonian archives. And to me, this was an exciting research 4 years ago started with the idea of can AI dream nature? And the music you hear also from the similarly nature sound recordings. But there was one thing missing, which was, could we smell these AI dreams? So literally, thanks to Eric Saracchi also from the former Firmenich, we start working with this idea, can we use scent molecules to let machine not only dream the sound and the image, but also the scent? So we invented this very first immersive room, now 4 years ago. And the idea was like enter this like a living archive, living library, where you can see, hear, and smell the possible AI dreams. It was fascinating. It was truly a whole thing that was missing, I think, in digital art. That was this like a one thing to unlock the memories. As we all know, the scent in our, based on the neuroscientific research, is significantly where our memories are captured in a way. I'm pretty sure you will remember your family's houses, the moments in life. It was this very special moment to unlock a new kind of an art form that we can now blend many different perceptions. So it was fascinating to see what else we can do with this, entering the machine dreams and imagine this world again. And on top of that, what happens if you take the same AI and the same scent molecules, this time maybe on a stage? Now, we experimented with Fazl's size on the stage in real time when he has composed the Tree of Life, when AI was dreaming on these beautiful flora systems for maybe a new form of opera. We can think about it, a new theater. And in real time, we also shared with 2,000 people the scent of this AI. And it was like 6 molecules over like 6 pieces have been changed. It was really, really a fresh take on that. And the other project I want to also mention, another maybe like, I have so many Switzerland connection, by the way. Another project is behind me is our coral research. We were invited by the World Economic Forum, which is in Davos. And thanks to the Joseph Fowler and the team, they really asked us, like, how can we bring art also to World Economic Forum and really make the world leaders think about the issues in the nature? And of course, corals are important. Corals are rapidly dying due to like the natural changes, and they were planning to like bring attention. But how to take attention in such a high-paced environment? They think that maybe art can be functional. So we were able to transform 135 million coral images to an AI model, which was able to create these beautiful creatures. They're not real, they look like real, but the other good news is we were able to 3D print them because they were very well understood by the diffusion models, and they were able to be put underwater to reconstruct in places where corals are died. So technically, we are experimenting, can we reconstruct what we lost? And I'm happy to say that even though there's a very significant science behind the experiments and partnership from the United Nations and the conservation people, but also on the surface, we have this art-making process. So we are trying to find as a studio how we can bring science, art together, and technology, make positive impact in places like World Economic Forum and other important places. And I'm happy to say that press really took very positively. So it became suddenly the highlight, and people were talking about corals, which is very important. And I think we move significant people in a positive way. And then also another connection to this building, I guess, another wonderful Gary's Disney Hall, this time in Los Angeles, and home of LA Philharmonic. And this idea, I'm pretty confident this building will also remember us. I'm pretty confident this will happen to many buildings. But the idea was, what happens if we take these 100 years of all the information LA Phil ever recorded? The music you hear also not real, from Mahler to Stravinsky, all kind of incredible minds performed last 100 years, is their dreams and hallucinations. It was fascinating to bring 100,000 people together in 5 nights in Los Angeles. It was free and open to everyone. And it was fascinating to hear from Alejandro Inarritu, which is my hero. He said, finally, I felt that I can touch science fiction. So it was a truly inspiring moment to feel these monumental buildings can one day become a canvas to tell and talk about incredible formats of imaginations. A very similar version happened also last year in Barcelona. the Gaudi's Casa Batlló. I mean, Gaudi also inspired by nature, truly an hero. And I think it was so inspiring to see his UNESCO heritage. And this time question was, can we let the building a living architecture by using a wind data sensor and connect the building to the live environment in real time from the cloud, project back to the building what the building can feel. In the center, we see the rain data in real time. On the right side, the wind data. On the left side, humidity data, real time, transforming 2 billion small molecules of this building surface. And it was just transforming the building into a living canvas. Now I want to show you a version of this, real time projecting to the building, and let's see how it looks like. We can also open the sound. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I think what was really special was really I felt that the people come to hug the building. It was a really special moment to see. And also we recently did this really another challenge, I will say. You may hear and see this at this fair in Las Vegas. It's an extraordinary scale building, and we create the world's largest AI data sculpture. So what you are seeing here is truly a physical manifestation of a sphere in a geometric context. We have to find a way to take our machine hallucinations research and make a rectangular kind of a world map projection back to the building to 9 million pixels and let it building also dream in real time and about space data from NASA GPL's archives of last 60 years. It was fascinating. I mean, it's a very special to think that what else can we do in the near future. It was fascinating to see the data sculpture in this scale and form. So, and I have two more things to, I think, share today that I think very important that I hope also as a studio we contribute to the art making. So I do believe that generative AI, like how we heard about the Nobel Prize on the literally AlphaFold and many others, of course, art is also quickly changing as well. So I'm so happy to say that as a studio, we were invited by the MoMA and Paolo Antonelli and Michel Coa, our curators, and to imagine literally a new form of art. For an artist, by the way, I heard this funny joke. If you're an artist that is not alive, your best option is Louvre Museum. If you're an artist that you're alive, your best option is MoMA. And I'm happy to say I'm alive and at MoMA. So what happened was a very inspiring start. So MoMA has 138,000 artworks in the archive. You can think this archive as all the pioneers in painting, sculpture, even games, Pac-Man, Tetris, it's in this archive. And this archive represents the pioneers in the field of imagination And curators and the museum is trying themselves to like collect these artworks and really think and display this across times, last 200 years. Our curators challenge an artist like myself practicing with archives, like what happens this time, maybe AI could dream this new world. So we literally start working with also another wonderful supporter and collector, Jensen Huang, and the NVIDIA team. This time, we let machine learning algorithms to dream, never show existing artworks in the archive, but imagine a new world, a new vocabulary. To do that, we had to train 1 year, multiple times AI models to be sure that AI model is perfectly hacked to never show what is real. Imagine the challenge of like scientific thinking, how to let AI to not never show what it learned from, but try to find a new vocabulary. It was fascinatingly big challenge. And then to do that was also amazing, the challenge in the pandemic time also, I want to remind you. And then we were invited to physical world, which this piece on the right side you can see, kind of a 9 meter by 9 meter media wall where the public can enter. But what made the work different was a camera and a microphone and a real-time weather data make this artwork never the same. Like life. So this is, for example, an artwork also to me, took us 6 months to demystify how this machine dreams these works. So you can clearly see the pattern of the movement of the weather, a rainy day, windy day, loud day, calm day, and so forth. So we took these mission decisions and transformed into demystification for people who want to learn more or people who just want to wonder and connect with the work. And what was really interesting to me to explain on the left side what a machine can dream, and machine learning algorithms, possible dreams that are never the same. And on the right side, me as a human, as an artist, through co-creation, I do believe future should be human-machine collaboration. And that's what was happening on the media wall in the form of data sculpture. So this transformation was a really very special one that I do believe make a very positive impact in the art world. And at the end, the piece became online and physically ready for the public. It was fascinating. The work was only ready for 2 months. The museum gets so much positive impact and received they extend 4 times the exhibition and received 3 million people, the largest audience in the MoMA history. But what was much important than that, I think this is interesting because we have the camera data, we learned that average viewing experience was 38 minutes. Even the work get viral, it was only went to 42 minutes. That means that becoming viral on social media had not too many impact for quantifiably. And the art historians in the museum was saying, you can see a blog post, one of the art historians was saying, you know, average 1-2 minutes, maybe apparently the museum goers are looking at it. But for us, or maybe very famous works has 4 minutes, but that was very special. And finally, it became the first art work in the collection that is generative AI. So I'm happy to say that we were able to say this form of art now is an art for sure, but also great for the upcoming generations. For people who want to practice this field, is now a form of art to imagine. Now, last 10 years was truly very inspiring for us to see different type of imagination across the world. And it was a time for our studio and myself and Efsun to think about how can we take this motivation and response to a new level. And today I also want to show another inspiring project that we are calling it Dataland. So after working with incredible museums, we thought that what happens if we imagine the world's first museum of AI arts? So 2 weeks ago, we announced this, and actually, so inspiring, inside another Frank Gehry building. Such a coincidence. And it's truly like, literally, this building next to me. And I want to show you a very quick demonstration of what is coming next from our studio. are very much excited to host you in Los Angeles if you have a time to visit us in the studio and truly host you in this new world. But we are truly excited to invent something fresh, something new. And to do that, we will be extremely careful about how we work with AI, how we work with data, also make it accessible to the people, to the young ones, to anyone, in any age, in any culture. And to do that very right, we thought that it's not about, I guess, here about the first, but I think this is a little bit about being right. So that's why we thought that we should create a model dedicated to nature. So as we all know, all the current AI research focus on large language models, pretty much focus on human reasoning and human intelligence. We thought that we can create a model just focused on the nature itself, to be the voice of the nature, not to replace it, not to change it, but to remember it, to learn about it, a new encyclopedia, a new book that I hope very important for all of us. And we start by asking the right question, can we get permission to use your data? And incredibly, inspiringly, took 1.5 years, and we received 500 million images for this AI model, and all ethically collected. And then on top of that, we are not a lazy studio, as I mentioned, or uncomfortable studio. On top of that, what happens if we also travel, go, and get more data about nature? So that's our team, traveling 16 locations, 16 rainforests, collecting sound data, LiDAR data, looking for species, and all this information will be open source and public for researchers and people to look and understand nature better. And we learned that some data is missing at the moment for academicians. And also try our best to make this kind of archive available for different researchers. And also very grateful for many researchers across the world allowing us to travel across very remote distances with incredible creatures you can imagine. A whole different thinking about data collection beyond just online materials. A fascinating place. And also you can see we are listening to humidity and SAP flows of beautiful creatures and really understand nature and again give back to communities who may make a beautiful research with that. And also we cannot be, of course, rushing to train this AI on a random energy. We are working with also Google friends who donated an extremely exciting cloud compute, which will be all renewable energy from Oregon. The slowest AI maybe, but I know that it's trained on nature-friendly energy sources. And then all this data will be open, and you will be able to connect in the museum and around the world in real time, interact with the species, and so forth. With this data, we, of course, very quickly, since 1 year, training different AI models. And image, sound, and text is, of course, our first experiment, and scent, as you can imagine. We already talk about it. And I want to show some examples very quickly. For example, it was fascinating 4 months ago, and with NVIDIA friends, we just dive in this universe and train with our data of 3 million species. And what you see here is not real, but they're accurate representations of the species. So we were able to achieve almost realistic results. Again, this is not about hallucination. This is not about art making. Here we are very careful thinking about scientific endeavors. Can this AI become a trustable source of nature where researchers can also type and find species or experiment with species, but also make art because we know where it starts, right? How it's developed, so it has a huge possibilities and potentials. And then also we were experimenting with tons of incredible fauna and creatures, these are all the Amazonian creatures that we can create, and even, and this is very exciting, from the Cornell Library, we received 250,000 bird songs. These are incredible creatures that you are seeing here. And it's fascinating to think that, so we are helping the library to sort information, which is incredible citizen science, but really hard to understand where they come from, where they go, and how we can see these beautiful data sets to understand how influential is rainforest for the world. And so we are helping scientists to understand this data much better. And also, we were able to create this text-to-video experiments. As we all know, there are lots of experiments going at the moment, and Hollywood is, I think, in many cinema pioneers right now is experimenting with this field in the studio in Los Angeles with a small group of people. What you are watching, all the Amazonian flowers that you can type and create in this video experiment, which I believe the longest right now text-to-video outputs that we can see, we can also smell. So that's how I feel Dataland can be. And also 4 months ago, we took this system. By the way, it's so challenging, as you know, real-time AI is a big challenge, meaning you need real-time computation to imagine these living artworks, living paintings, or living sculptures. 4 months ago, we were also at GTC, and this time we took this AI and was able to take it to a large wall in real time. So I'm literally on a stage like this, and I'm real time creating this, and I will say text to video AI outputs in real time, transforming into this example before the Jensen Huang's presentation about these upcoming experiments in computation. So it's really inspiring to push forward technology and really experiment on largest scale possibilities. It was fascinating to experiment, and really we found so much last 6 months that living paintings and living sculptures can be a way of imagining within different scales. And you can see some beautiful creatures flying there. And also, actually, last week, also very important for our studio, I was at United Nations. So our research is not only just about our studio or art making and science. I was very honored to become a part of an exciting invitation from the United Nations. And thanks, General Secretary, and we were together able to create this artwork in the United Nations by showing the large language model as the most ethical and nature-friendly AI. And also received a beautiful response from and across the different people that are inspired about this research. And it's so funny to say that here the UN team and the Mr. General Secretary is saying, I wish I can cancel my meetings to see more art, to get the building more happy. And finally, I want to share this important story. And this is a bird, for example, from our AI research. But this bird's name is only known by 17 people. And this is the interesting part of, I think, that AI, we sometimes forget inclusivity. So this is an incredible moment for me and my wife also. We have been also working with the people living in the forest, in the heart of the nature. This is Chief Nishiwaka and Chief Putani. They are the chiefs of only 1,000 people living in Amazonia in Brazil rainforest. They are called the Yavanava people. So they are our mentors, they are our heroes, they are our teachers. We have been very fortunate to be invited by their homes in the Amazonia. And we were so inspired by their way of living, by their way of recording, by their way of sharing their culture, by their way of living their spirituality. And there is no, for me, a way of AI for humanity can be a part of us without being inclusive. And I'm so honored to say that we become, I guess, co-creators, co-partners, co-artists, and we are having imaging last 2 years together different forms of arts. And what is very inspiring to me is we can also use generative AI to make much bigger impact than the beautiful artwork that you have seen. So I would say 2 years ago, we started also collaborating. Yavanava people was one of those dreamers of the forest, and the chief was dreaming to have a museum and a school. And a 1,000 living forest family was not that easy. So we joined the forces last year, and these are by using these beautiful paintings by young Yavanava artists, Muka and Nava. They are very young artists and very first time drawing these incredible pieces. And we literally joined their beautiful work, which they love, by the way, AI work so much, with our work. And you can see here, created a new collection called Winds of Yavanava. To make the artwork, we also put a very exciting, unique weather pattern data recorder to take the beautiful form of rainforest data with the wind data and collect it with this artwork. So the artworks were able to create a unique 1,000 pieces. And we donated all these funds to Yavanava people and raised $2.5 million for their village. All on blockchain, all transparent, all quantifiable. Why it was important to me is finally, literally this year at Davos, we were there together, very first indigenous people, recognized by the Davos and on the main stage, and share their stories, share their voices. I do believe the future of AI, to bring inspiration, joy, and hope to humanity, we have to be inclusive, to bring all the voices, all the colors, anyone, everyone. So I want to close this wonderful moment with the words of Chief. He says, it's new times we are living now. Time for forgiveness, time for love, time for spirituality. It's time for humanity to look back to the origins, to the earth, to our hearts, to learn, to love, and respect one another, to make alliances, join forces. This is the moment. Thank you very much for listening. 134.
134, so we went down.
Just
slightly. We're still very high on energy. You were fast.
Thank you so much.
Refik, this was incredible. You truly did touch, definitely, my heart, my soul, my mind. I don't know where to start now, because I think this intersection between beauty and meaning is totally addictive. Like, I could sit here for another 2 hours. We always have open questions.
Please.
So there are people with microphones in the room. I'm selfishly now using the moment with you on stage to kick us off. And I have one question. In an earlier conversation, you used the beautiful, I believe it's an African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And everything that you showed this evening is about collaboration, front and center. How do you, in this, it's not an easy space, but how do you open people's minds and hearts? What's your secret to collaboration?
I think really, I don't know exactly, but I always say the same thing, doing the thing from heart, like doing the work from heart. And I know that sometimes it's a very big challenge to really go places that maybe never seen before, or at tools that never been, came together. And I'm sure in scientist world, this is exactly the mindset of a scientist. They're always like in that, challenging spaces. I feel that in the studio we are like that. So I always, as a child, I remember I never enjoy finding something alone, but playing a game alone. Like always let's just find something new and let's find what it is. And that feeling never went away. And I found that it's incredibly inspiring when we detach ego from data, when we detach ego from the creativity, and we become a living organism, and it has all these possibilities.
Are computers still your friends?
Yeah, still.
So when have you seen your friend Commodore 64 the last time?
Yeah, well, it was.
Is he still part of the...
I'm super in love with games, and StarCraft specifically, like a lot of strategy games are very inspiring. But I think it's really so fun to think that one day playing with computer as a game, and one day that can become a friend as AI, there's a very exciting distance of 2 decades. But it's I think what it is. They are like our co-creators. I don't want to say a tool right now, because it's more than a tool. Yeah. AI is a very strong technology. But it's like that, a very similar mindset. It just extends the mind of our cognitive capacity in as quick as we can imagine. And it's the same idea. Games brings us to places we never go before, like Carl Sagan mentioned. And we can, I'm sure many people in the flow state while they're playing games. So there's so much possibilities there.
And you're such a tech optimist, right? You have neomania, everything that's new is exciting for you. How are conversations with people that are scared?
So first of all, as I mentioned, my optimism is coming from the possibilities. But possibilities come with responsibilities. So in our works, in our exhibitions across the world, we always demystify where data comes from, which algorithm we use, who invented and why. So we always create that safe and secure space. And I learned across different cities and countries, it makes people feel connected to a thing that they know how it's made sometimes. And I know it sounds weird for artists generally doesn't show how they do things, and techniques are hidden, or let people to wonder how it's made. Sure, I agree that. But I've been working with AI in this such an exciting time for 8 years. I think there's more than that. And that's why, as a teacher, also last 10 years teaching, I found that responsibility. And when it's done right, I think it made people absolutely connected with the work around the world. And it is a very important part of making art, or a thinking brush concept.
Thinking brush, I love that term. So I would now open it up to
I was so fast, so sorry, but I was so excited to share. But thank you very much.
Do we have a question from the auditorium?
I think we have a question right here.
Yeah, anytime.
Back here.
Yes, please.
Hi, good evening. So my question is the following. Art has always required some kind of a tool, whether it's a chisel, whether it's a pen, or a paint, or a brush. In this particular case, is AI the tool, or is it the artist?
I think, very good question. I see that as a 50% situation, because it's really like a co-creator in some places. And I'm doing my very best to balance this answer. by really practicing. But if you think about art, I think always for artists, it's all about chance and control. And in this case, we have mission intelligence in the team that I think allowing me and my team to like program the chance and control. And I think it's one way of looking. But also, if you think about like, if you look at a conventional art form, most likely artists every day has the same brush, the same canvas, same pigment. Ideas are changing, right? The dreams are changing. But for me, every morning is a new morning. The tool is not anymore the same brush. The canvas is changed, and so forth. And pigment is also like change. So I feel like this ever-changing feeling is a very, very different space to be, very uncomfortable, but also brings this like a dialogue between the machine and human. And I feel like this is the most important dialogue for humanity. And I think to find the language of humanity, I think we have a chance to use this dialogue to find maybe new ways of seeing us.
Thank you. I've been a fan of yours for quite a while now, so I've been following you on LinkedIn and various other places, and we've seen your art at Art Basel as well, very inspiring. My question is a little bit more personal. I was curious about how did you get from there to here? So basically from growing up in Istanbul, playing video games, to where you are now. Were your parents okay with you playing video games?
No.
How did they encourage you?
Absolutely not.
What's your journey, basically?
So I'm so grateful that I grew up with a family of teachers. We had like 14 teachers in the family. So I learned to learn very early ages. So like saying I don't know something was something not okay. So that was like a very early stage. And I also grew up with my aunt, for example. She lost her vision very early ages. So I was her eyes also in the family. So I was trying to explain the world to her, the colors, the like, the things that she was watching and so forth. And it was like, I learned that, the power of seeing, the power of vision is like, to me, from my heart, is so special and dear, thanks to her. But then, of course, I think the family is very important, where these ideas nurtured and dreams nurtured. But then also in the journey, grateful for my wife and partner that we together last 16 years trying these new worlds. I'm sometimes like this, balloon that like flying to unreal worlds, like sometimes taking back to the reality, just a moment that's not makes sense. But it's that, journey of like spectrum of realities. But I'm really grateful for a team. Becoming a team changed everything. It's really very important to be able to become a team. And team also, like, I reflect the same idea of a family. And I know it sounds sometimes weird, but our studio is a small studio. It's not about scale, it's about becoming really a small group of people doing things. And I'm working 16, 18 hours a day, but I think I don't feel like it is, because this, together team allows us to push the boundaries. And also collaborations. They are so important. There is so much value in imagination and working with the pioneers who have been pushing the boundaries. And especially right now, I feel that it's a beautiful moment to understand or remember the future moment, right, for humanity. And also like people like Yavanava family, like we are really trying like our best to be honest and open to everything and anything. And I think it really brings a grounding moment to remind us who we are, where we are coming from. And I think, remember, being human is a lot of like responsibilities in it. And then also try to, again, work from heart only. And that's a kind of a journey as quick as I can.
Thank you very much. Up here. Hi. Thank you very much for your inspiring presentation and the images, the creativity of the images. I'm just curious. When you look at the beauty of a flower, it depends whether you're looking at it with the eyes of a human or the eyes of a bird or the eyes of a butterfly. So it depends on the data that's actually being used. So I'm just curious whether you limit the data that you use to human visible wavelengths or sound spectrum, whether you've explored those going beyond the human perspective?
Amazing question, and thank you for the question, because when we think internal in the studio, like we sometimes look each other weird, but it's absolutely an amazing thing. By the way, this morning we saw the very early pigments in the Novartis archives, like the very first pigment dyes that have been printed and molecular level. Like I was shocked that 1864 was the first book that we looked. Since that the pigment was alive, that we were able to see it, it was just fascinating. I mean, like back in time, that pigment 160 years ago, that's there, and now we can like see it. I always think about the same thing for our work too. Like for example, I see that these are media walls for sure. It's not like a maybe a surface that can only compute certain colors that is not retina quality yet. But I'm really inspired by researching the color science so much to understand what is like beyond exactly the media walls or light as a material can capture. And I'm seeing this impossible sometimes, because given the physical quantity of a light source. But I'm trying my very best to like look at every single information we can find. But also working with people like Yavanava or people living in the nature for thousands of years, looking at the world through their eyes, how they see and hear. Sometimes they are the voice of the birds, they are the voice of the nature, they are the voice of the wind, and really opening up our perception by these dialogues are really changing our shift perception. Sometimes a JSON CSV file, sure important, but sometimes a very long, deep discussion in the remote distances of the nature and really discuss with the people that how they see the world through their eyes. And I think that's a beautiful balance to really understand.
Thanks for the wonderful talk. Your art requires lots of computer power and large data sets, but I wonder, when you have a new idea, how do you sketch it? How do you start it?
Yeah, so the great question. So it all started with data as now almost 16 years. Data is a fundamental layer of reality there, generally. And some data sets are very easy to work, some are very hard. That is like partnerships and need support. That's why working with incredible computational supports and challenges is very important. And it's obvious, by the way, that we know that these tools are incredible for AI research, but they are the breakthroughs, right? That's hard to make another breakthrough by using a breakthrough. So for artists, by the way, we always, again, want to train our own models, work with our own data. So that's where the challenge starts. So we are doing our best to work with any compute power we can work with, generally cloud, because much easier to scale and be useful and meaningful while doing the energy consumption. We are very, by the way, accurate about why and where and how we do this compute, which gives a very different relaxation and a different mindset. There are solutions to these challenges. It takes a lot of time and resource, of course, but happy to say it's possible. And that's why in our AI museum, we are trying to make a form of support to also artists that one day they can also experiment with these ideas. Not big scales, not large scales, but a scale that maybe an artist may need, 500,000 images. Or I don't know the scale of it, to be honest, but it will be a fascinating place, a new kind of a playground for people who cannot access compute. So we are doing our best.
We have one last question here in the front. We're closing, but only the formal part. There will be an informal part. So
Merhaba Refik Bey.
Merhaba.
I'm a gross fan, I'm a big fan of your work, and last week I was in Casablanca, actually in the Cube, and you have made your references to StarCraft and Blade Runner. I think all consequences of being a kid at the end of 80s, beginning of 90s, and I would assume that you have also considered to kind of do something with your work that involves a little bit of the gaming part. And I wonder how you would envision it with the art that you are making, what kind of world that would be.
Oh, it's an amazing question. That's exactly, we are experimenting right now. It's a very interesting world, but but what I'm trying to be sure that, because we don't want to replace reality as a studio, we are very in love with physical world. And I think what I love so much about these immersive environments, it brings us together. It makes us sit and feel and think and experience together. Right now, I'm super inspired by still exploring what exists, what we can do in a physical world. Because there is this tendency for like a rush to the virtual world, I feel like, but there's so much to do here, I think, still. I mean, in a physical virtual world, that's where the two worlds collide. That's where I'm experimenting right now with the team for Dataland AI Museum, this liminal space where we can connect to these new worlds. And that's what will hopefully next year will be experiments about that.
Can we apply for a citizenship at Dataland?
It's no borders, no passport, a different world. But by the way, this is so special to see you from here. Can I take a selfie with you all with your permission, data permission? It's so special to
do it.
Can we do it, or just for personal memory?
Yes.
Just personal. It's amazing.
Share it with Frank Gehry.
Yeah.
Only if you share it with Gehry.
I mean, if you don't want to be here, sorry. But it's amazing. Please. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much again.
This is a great audience, right?
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you again.
This is a great audience. You have to agree there are some really great questions. I want to thank you for the questions. I want to thank you for the beauty, for pushing the boundaries, for actually making AI so super exciting. Refik, this was terrific.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You did promise that you would stay for the informal part.
Yes.
So we now all invite you for drinks and snacks right, in a next Gehry experience.
Yes, let's do it. So good to meet you.
Thank you.